Welcome, everybody. We're doing something that we have never done before, a remote podcast, joining the rest of the world. I think we're only a decade behind at this point. I don't know, but if this works beautifully, it was my idea. If it all goes to hell, this was Zach and him trying to do it behind the scenes.
Usually how that works.
Yeah. So
This is going to work beautifully. I'm excited for this.
Amazing. I hope it does. Even though we're all in Austin and we're like under hail and tornado warnings at the moment. I can hear the rain beating down on the outside of my house, so I'm just praying that the internet connection lasts.
I know.
The weather, if you're watching, the weather looks pretty good where Kevin is.
No, yes, Kevin is clearly not.
Kevin
is just outside San Antonio, but no, actually this picture was actually just in March. I was in Hawaii, on Kauai. No, actually this was the Big Island. Sorry, the Big Island of Hawaii. This was a golf course I played on, and I took this picture. That picture was taken from my iPhone.
It looks like one of those Windows backgrounds.
Oh, I know. It's amazing. I got when I hit the tee shot. That's from the box. It's a par 3. And so, I just stood there in awe, just kind of panoramic, and it was incredible. And I was like, so when we were looking for background pictures, I was like, it's a widescreen. I'm like, I wonder if I drop this one in there. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah.
That looks pretty real.
Yes, sir.
I love it. Well, so those listening and watching and follow along, this episode specifically, we really want to hone in and has a ton of great content and value for parents and educators. We are going to talk about some excellent, amazing tools that Zach and I have personally experienced the power behind and the group that's behind them. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of dive into just introductions. You've heard Kevin and Denise's voice in the background there. So I'd like to officially welcome Kevin Curtis, founder of National Educators for Restorative Practices, and co-founder Denise Holliday. You guys are like a 1-2 punch, amazing to get to know, work with. Love the creativity you're bringing to to the education world and really to families, to homes. So much of what we're about to dive into are things that I'm excited to put into practice around the kitchen table now, with my family at dinner tonight, and get better at them. I think when Zach and I first came across you guys, the message and what you were doing kind of spoke to us because it was an extension of what we were doing naturally in some way, but didn't have words for. So what I'd love for you guys to dive in and start with is just kind of sharing big picture. Who is NEDRP? What is restorative practices? And then we'll talk a little bit about how this all came about in the first place.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. My name is Kevin Curtis. This is my 21st year in education. I have experience at the elementary, the middle school, the high school, a principal, assistant principal, classroom teacher, instructional coach, and I was a high school football coach, varsity football and baseball, for about almost 10 years in the public school system. And then I just simply moved up in leadership and got into assistant principal, and I happened to be blessed to be on this campus in Ed White Middle School in San Antonio, Texas, in the Northeast Independent School District. And we ended up leading the district with 1,149 types of suspensions in schools. And
that's impressive.
We're number one.
We were number one. And
we're number one.
That was the only category we were number one in. So, and so just, the cut version is we thought we were under the same premises at most schools. If kids don't want to be here and learn, get them out. And what really started thinking about it is somebody pointed out that if you're number one and you're leading with that number of suspensions, why isn't your behavior going down? And we were like, I never thought about it that way, right? Never really looked at the data points. And so, believe it or not, my principal at the time, his wife was a criminal justice major. She was taking a criminal justice class at UTSA being taught by Robert Rico. And I always say, Robert Rico, man, when I talk to him, I give him the total credit for the restorative seed planted in the entire state of Texas. He's an adjunct professor, retired police officer of 29 years, teaching restorative as a philosophy and as a practical approach in criminal justice. And he brings up how it's being done in schools in Oakland, California. My principal's wife hears this, comes home, tells principal. Principal gets the idea. Within a few days, this police officer is pitching us the idea, y'all want to be the first restorative campus. And I'm like, what is it? I hear the word restorative like most of your listeners, and I think restore cars, restore furniture, right? Mm-hmm. But he's like, no, restore relationships. And I was like, wow, now that's pretty ironic for me personally, because as I was working as this assistant principal, I was going through a second master's at Wayland Baptist in Christian ministry. I thought I wanted to be a youth pastor. So what's crazy about this whole thing is he's like, restore relationships. And I'm like, wow. Now that I see the crossover into my personal life in my belief in Christ. And so all of a sudden I'm interested. Long story short, we pilot this in 2012, just in 6th grade. I'm daddy discipline for 330 kids, 15 teachers. We loop up with it. So it takes 3 years for it to grow through this model to get to this campus. At the end of 3 years, then the state of Texas, TEA, had come down and evaluated us. You guys are in Austin. The University of Texas at Austin, called the Institute of Restorative Justice and Restorative Dialogue, was our consultants. And they wrote a 3-year evaluation and did all the consulting and helped us get this up and running. And then TEA said, we think we want to take this training across the state of Texas. And I was like, wow. They were like, you're the only one by default that has a voice in this for 3 years. How would you like to work with us? Not for us, with us. And so I left public education and I just started training at the service center. So when you say, Joe, you're like, what is it? I'm like, oh my God, it's the definition and what it has and what it's changed in so many years. For example, we called it restorative discipline, but it's rooted out of restorative justice, that powerful movement where victims and offenders get together and heal, right, through harm. And so then recently, in the last couple of years, we've landed on relational or restorative practices. And so restorative practices, we feel like, is a good model and a good vocabulary that fits in schools. So as I'm growing and going through these trainings, I meet this amazing person, Denise Holiday. Mm-hmm. And so Denise Holiday is in Maynard, and she'll tell you about, but she's in Maynard, Texas, working in this model. And I'm just blown away by her experiences and her voice and her heart. And so once I met her, you guys talk about this, like, this isn't just work in schools. What this work has done for me over the last almost, again, 8 years, it's transformed me. It comes into my household. It comes into my personal life, my professional life. It's truly transformational in so many ways. And that's why I'm excited to share about what we can look like that in the classrooms, not just in the classrooms, in the homes today. So Zach, then Denise.
Yeah. And Denise, I want to hear, I got a question for you in a second, but I heard something, Zach. I don't know if you heard what I heard. Maybe I misheard, Kevin, but I thought I heard a man describe being in the education system for about 20 years, then thinking about being a youth pastor.
All in God's timing, Joe. All in God's timing, you know?
Man, if that's not the most backwards thing I've ever heard, I don't know what is. But you don't even get to that point unless you have a deep passion and love for the next generation. So we definitely love that. So Denise, if you were explaining what restorative practices are to a teen, how would you sum it up for them?
If I'm explaining, I'm going to say restorative practice is, and this is Kevin's definition, a relational approach to building and sustaining relationships while also using it to repair harm or dealing with discipline. But if I'm speaking from my heart about this and personally, restorative practice is about listening to each other. It's about when we get it wrong, how can we make it right? It's about letting every person involved know that every person matters. We are all needed for what we bring to the table, whatever that is. It's about connecting, it's about love, it's about value. And in fact, after meeting Kevin, Like before meeting him, I did not find value in myself. I didn't think I was valuable at all. I knew that like what I was doing in terms of working in schools, I did it because that was what I needed when I was a student. I kind of get that. And it was just a way of living for me. All right, I needed this. I remember going through this. So I want to give that to other students. But in fact, when I met Kevin, like I just kept hearing him say to me, you deserve it, or you deserve better. And I keep asking him, why are you doing this? Why are you invested? Why are you calling me? What do you want? What do you want from me? And in fact, he wanted absolutely nothing but for me to see that I deserve to be valued. And I am somebody, no matter what I bring to the table, whether I have something or nothing, the love was good enough. So yeah, Kevin really, man, he's my best friend, my brother. He really helped me work through a lot of things that otherwise I don't think I would have. I really don't.
Yeah. So if I'm listening to this as a parent, as a educator, influencer, and I'm identifying with things that I can relate to personally and in ministry and all of it. So I'm super excited to start diving into the tools. But before we do that, because you guys have some great content here, can you share, either one of you guys, share a story or something, a moment that you were working with a student or where you've seen, how does the light bulb go off? How does this actually play out and impact people, families, relationships?
So I'll share a little bit about my own personal family experience. I had just recently been trained in restorative practices, and I'm going to do the family thing versus the educator thing, because I have plenty of those stories to tell also. But I remember thinking, oh wow, this is so powerful. And at that time, Circle was in the forefront. And what we realize now is so much more than just Circle. But my son was struggling, and he was struggling with his relationship with his dad. And I was desperate to not save him, but let him know that he had a voice and his voice should be heard. And so his dad was like, oh, what are we gonna do? We were not married at the time. He was remarried. And I said, all right, I just learned this Circle thing. Now, I never recommend anyone doing a family repair circle if this is their first time doing it. But guess what? I was 2 feet in the ocean head first. I was gonna do whatever it took. And so when that was all over, I facilitated that family circle. And as he went around and told everyone what he needed, like I just got emotional, but it was profound because what he said was not material things. What he needed was the way we spoke to him, and the way we interacted with him. He felt like his dad wasn't as, open or as loving and caring. He felt like he didn't love him because of the way we speak to one another when we're angry. And so when his dad heard that, it was like a profound moment for him. We don't think about the words we use and how we use them and how it impacts others until we sit down and have an opportunity to share how it's impacted us. Mm-hmm. And when that was all over, we all left kind of going like, what just happened? But here's where I knew that there was power in that and it was needed, is that he came to me maybe a week after that happened and he goes, hey mom, my friend is having a hard time with his parents. Can you do what you did? Can you help him? And I was blown away by that. I was like, I didn't do anything. And he was like, well, maybe you can talk. Maybe you can give them that opportunity that I had. to share, one, what I needed and how you speak to me impacts me. And I just want love. But for us as the adults to say, look, son, we love you. And this is what we need from you. And so every now and then I still get those calls from him. And he's kind of a passive, kind of quiet guy. But the one thing that's certain is with his girlfriend, with all of his friends, if they're struggling, he picks up that phone and he says, Mom, can you like talk to him? Like, you don't have to talk to him, like, just can he come over and you just sit down with him? That said to me that he thought that was a gift to him that he wants to share with his friends. I don't know about you, but I thought that was pretty powerful and profound.
Yeah.
I
I
love
just
it.
want to piggyback on that. For a student to invite their mom into situations out of this world, like modern day miracle. And two, I know exactly what he's talking about because I had the same experience when I met you. Like it says Denise Holiday down there, but you're circle mama in my book. And I felt it as soon as I met you. Joe was like, hey, let's go to this training. I'm like, oh, great, Joe, a training. I love trainings. It's at a school. Oh, cool. At 8 a.m. I'm like, man, whatever. I can't say no to Joe. But by the end of day one, like it didn't even take me getting to day two. Like we went from sitting and taking notes and it was something academic to something I was actually actively engaging and participating in. I think we were up at the front dancing or doing something I wouldn't do in most situations. Like you just unlocked me and I was fully present.
Yeah.
And it all happened because of this, because of the relationship, because of how you were communicating, the different tools that you're going to share here in just a second.
Yeah.
And I think for me, many ask, like, why are you, like, how do you have so much love and you hug on so many people? And I tell people all the time, I want to give to others what I needed in my most difficult, trying, struggling times. I want them to receive that. I never want anyone to feel like I ever had to feel not valuable, unwanted, not worthy. So yeah, that's kind of, I just give that. I don't even know that I'm doing it. It's just.
But Joe, I would say this to that. Sorry to interrupt, but here's the deal. Like Denise, you guys got to experience it, right? You experienced exactly, Zach, what I experienced, right? When sitting in a room, right? You're like, oh my God, what is this, right? And what I try to explain to people, and in fact, everyone on our team who comes around Denise, right? She's anointed. Like she is truly anointed, right? And I'm so comfortable in the setting saying that word. She is so anointed. And what she couldn't see, what everybody else saw, was she is light. And I know we're not going to go very deep into this, but just understand Denise comes from a very dark past, right? And you don't understand. We would sit with notebooks behind her or in circle with her, and we would be like, how did Denise say that sentence, right? Or how did she ask that question? And we're like, we asked the exact same question, right? Like, there is just something about her. She has it, right? And she is blessed. And so I told her about a year ago, I said, I think I figured it out. None of us can emulate you. It's impossible because the way God has created her, right? She has come from this very dark and traumatic past. And I tried to tell her, we're roughly the same age. She's a little bit older than I am. So she turned 51 just this month, and I'll turn 51 in September. But I told her when we hit 50, I said, you know what it is? I said, when you walk into a room, you've held on to so much of that light inside of you. Now, 40 something years later, when it finally came out, when she comes into a room, like she literally lights up the room. And so I told her, I said, that's why we can't do it. It's not the question. It's not the format. We just don't have that anointing that God has put on you. You are a human hug. I tell people all the time, the reason she's my co-founder, she is the heart. I am the head. She is the heart. I'm that ex-football coach, disciplinarian, I'm that guy. She is all about love and patience and forgiveness. I'm like, forgive what? Right? So like, Joe, you talk about a story, right? When I was in the middle of teaching this concept or this content at this middle school, You have to understand, I had just come off of a year of 1,149 types of suspension, nose to nose, toes to toes, having kids arrested. And to be honest, I was kind of enjoying that part of the job. I was almost like an extension of our SRO, our police officer, right? But it hit me after I spent the next year building relationships, sustaining relationships, listening to kids' problems and whatever. That's interesting dynamics. That's when I got it back into that ministry mindset, started working on that second master's. Then year 2, it's like a sophomore slump. All of a sudden, it's like reverting back to default, right? Who you are. And so all of a sudden, they start treating me poorly. I start treating them poorly. And I almost abandoned everything restorative. When I say restorative / relationship centered, right? And all of a sudden I'm like, well, then you know what? You can get out of my school and you can get out of my school. And I would have good days and I would have bad days. My emotions were all over the place. And the kids would resonate with that. They'd be like, what is up with Mr. Curtis, right? Like one day he's good day and one day he's bad and one day he loves us, the next day he's kicking us out. And I remember going home vividly one day as an educator, like most of us do. And I just remember sitting there going, what am I doing? Like, what is going on with me? And I remember at the time, I was married to a principal and she was like, what is wrong? And I'm like, I don't like myself. I like the person I was last year, right? When I was really hyper-focused on relationships and repairing harm and sitting in circles and conversations and not have to worry about. And I said, and I think I just kind of lost my mojo, right? And she said, so what do you think you can do? And I said, this was literally a Saturday morning. And I said, I'm so convicted right now. If I literally could go up to the school right now and bring, because you got to remember, all my kids looped up with me. So these are like I'm daddy discipline for them from 6th grade to I said, if I could bring all my 7th graders up to the school right now as a group and apologize to them, I would. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, that's not possible. I said, no, but I said, so I got to do something. So I made my mind up on Monday. I sent an email to the teachers. I said, hey, everybody goes through math. I'm going to be coming through math today. I just need 5 minutes to have conversations. I had no script, didn't know what I was going to do. I started walking in rooms and I said, hey guys, I just need to talk to you. And I just want you to know that I know you've seen some changes for me from last year to this year and recently some good days and bad days. And all I can tell you is I don't like it, but here's what I'm struggling. The way that you treat me, there are days that you treat me poorly and there's days that you respect me. There's days you love me and there's days you don't. And I don't know how to handle that yo-yo emotions, right? And I said, so all I'm here today is to tell you, I want to do better. And I am so sorry for the way that I spoke to you. And if I've been if I've had an attitude with you, or if you've been part of that mass discipline exit when I've just kicked people out, I am so sorry. And I want to do so better. And so I went through math class. Well, you come to the 3rd period. This is right before lunch. And I don't realize it. It is taking an emotional toll on me. And by the 3rd apology, man, my lips are quivering. I'm in tears. I can't finish my sentence. And I'm speaking from my heart. And in the middle of my lip quivering and stopping, man, one of my students stood up, man, and LaJoy was like, do you see what we're doing? Do you see what we're doing to him? He's in here apologizing, and do you see what we're doing to him? How we're treating him? And so I just hugged her and I thanked the class and I left. And man, I got to lunch and we have a microphone at lunch. And so now you have everybody in there. And so I'm not trying to do my apology or anything during lunch. Now it's just like, all right, we're at lunch, whatever. And out of nowhere, LaJoy walks up and says, excuse me. And she grabs the mic and she literally in front of 300 plus kids and says, I need y'all to shut up and listen to me now. And so everybody quiets down for LaJoy. And she's like, if Mr. Curtis has not come to your classroom today, I'm just telling you, you better be listening to him and we better be treating him right, right? And she just starts talking about how we should be treating each other. So when you talk about the impact of this, you don't see that stuff coming. There is no textbook for that. There's not something that you're going to be taught in a class or something in your college. And so those real life experiences is what allowed me to jump in 2 feet and go, okay, I have to continue to be intentional to stay in this space because my kids need this. but I need this.
Yes.
I cannot stay in education. And so what's crazy is when I left a year later, I didn't want to leave. I just had to convince myself that God had a plan for me. And I thought I was going to be a principal and go through, get up to a superintendent one day. God was like, hey, you know how you were having that second master's in ministry? Guess what? You're about to apply all that discipleship and all those things that you learned. I'm just going to give you a new platform to do it. And that's going to by going out and training adults in these relational practices, restorative. And so it's amazing. You can't ever outthink God and how he aligns things. And I'm like, look at how smart he was. He got me elementary, middle school, high school, principal, he gave me every litmus test so that when I stood in front of educators, I had all the ability for them to listen. And then when you like somebody like Denise, and I say this with most respect, but first I met Denise, they're like, she's just a paraprofessional. That was a title, right? That just means she doesn't have a degree and she doesn't have very many college hours or whatever, but it doesn't mean she's not amazing. Doesn't mean she doesn't have the biggest heart ever. And I think the connotation in education is that you need to have a degree in this. And I tell them opposite. In fact, not having a degree, and I'm so glad I didn't get a doctorate in this. I'm so glad I'm not Dr. Curtis. I'm just regular old Mr. Curtis, because I think the more real and genuine and authentic you are, I think that helps other people kind of maybe start to permeate some of those layers of biases and cultures and beliefs that this relationship approach can't work.
Yeah, this is great stuff. So now we're itching to kind of dive into some of this, the practicals here. So let's do that. I'm ready. The four of us are going to participate in some of the practices. So what you got up for us, and how are we going to do
y'all
this?
ready to roll with me?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we have one tool called the mood meter or pulse meter. Getting a pulse on where your students are, where your family is. We don't think about that. I want you to think about pulse meter. Think about how simple it can be, but we neglect to check in on one another. So I want to do a quick check-in with you guys. I'm going to do a scale to 1 to 5 to see where you are. 1 means that you're not very good. 5 means you're doing great. And just share a little bit. I'll share first. So our pulse meter share scale to 1 to 5. I'm gonna be real honest. I am like a 3 to a 5. A 3 because I was so nervous about coming on and doing this podcast, making sure I say the right things. But what I realize is all I can do is be myself. So I'm a 3 etching up to like a 5 now, because this is freaking amazing. Joe.
Wow. Well, man, over the last 2 weeks, especially as this whole pandemic has unfolded, I think I know I've been from a 1 to 5, 5 to 1, 1 to 5, all in the same like 60-second time span. So if I had to stop and freeze the thing as to where I am right now, I'd probably say 4.
Zach?
Yeah. So I shared a little bit with you guys before we even got on. We had to put down our dog yesterday. So that had me at the lowest that I've been in a while. I'm also super excited about what God's doing and being on this conversation, but that I think I'm a 2 right now. And I'm kind of like riding that wave between 1 and 5.
Kevin.
I would tell you, we check in with our team every week like this. And so I have lately been struggling, like you talked about, Joe. It could be every 60 seconds. But I will tell you, having better health and better just different things going on in my life at the end, I am much better. I cannot believe I'm more of a 4 today. This has probably been the high point of the last couple weeks. Like today, just the conversation, my mood, my attitude, just the way the direction's going. We're launching we're vetting our online training right now. Like a lot of things are finally moving forward to try to pivot from this. So I feel like today, man, for the first time in a long time, I can actually say I'm a 4.
Awesome. So I just want to say a little bit about that, about the pulse meter. it's not an opportunity, and we confuse it sometimes, for us to know where our students or our family is for us to fix it, but it's just an opportunity for us to know, all right, they're there. So this might not be the time to talk about something difficult. Or, maybe I'll drop them a little note of encouragement because they may need it. It's not about fixing. It's about helping students, adults understand, like, inside of them what they're feeling, students to regulate themselves. I don't think we think students really understand, like, what students feel, butterflies, what does that mean? How do I check in? Because it's not something that we teach. Self-regulation or where we are. We don't teach that. We teach math, science, all of those things, but we don't teach about those butterflies in our stomachs. We don't teach about when the hairs on the back of our neck stand up. We don't teach, all right, let's talk more about that. So really it's more about self and knowing where the ones that we care about and the ones we're around, where they are. So we know how to approach. Kevin?
So if I can just extend on that, Joe and Zach. So at the end of the day, it can be a scale. It's like when you go to the doctor and they're on where's your pain on a 0, 1 to 10, right? You can do a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5. You can do a color, almost like lights, right? You can do like, hey, if you were a car today, what kind of car would you be, right? And that car would describe. We could kind of get an idea of where you're at. So checking in with you on a pulse meter can have a variety of different ways. What it does, though, is what Denise is talking about is it's not just a number of saying, I'm a 4. Now, notice that Denise didn't ask us to expound, but we were naturally expounding on why our numbers are that. One of your family members or if you're on an online youth ministry and you're virtually checking in with them, somebody could say a 3, or a 1 and not tell you why, right? Zach tells us about having to put the dog down. So there gives some context to that. So then that way, when somebody does expound on it, like, okay, whatever we're covering today, whether it just be fun, content, whatever it is, we need to take time, tone, and circumstances into consideration when we're speaking to that person, correct? So when you look at it, it can be a variety of days a way to check in. But I think with everything that's going on in this pandemic, we need to be checking in. And what Denise just talked about is we want to start getting to the point where, hey, not just what number are you, or not what just car you are, or what color you are, what is that like for you, or what are you struggling with? Getting comfortable enough to talk about our feelings surrounding or our circumstances surrounding whatever that pulse is, so that we can support each other or just know how to give you distance. And the biggest thing I think I've learned through Denise and through these tools is, when somebody's struggling, not everybody needs to be hugged or empathize. Some people need distance, some people need closeness. And so we have to be very delicate when, particularly an emotional time where everybody's going through things, as you mentioned, Joe, in 60 seconds, you can go from a 1 to a 5 or 5 to a 1 and all these different things. So with our fluctuation of emotions right now, I think it's important as families in our homes and in our offices and work together, even virtually, hey, we call it check in, check up, and check out. So, if you could do that throughout your entire day, that way if something gets thrown at somebody, you can be there for them, even if it's just to listen to them.
I think that's a great point. So I'm hearing you say we could use a pulse meter multiple times a day. And so I'm gonna ask some questions on this before we move on to the next practice here. But let's say I'm at the dinner table. I know my nature is to be a fixer. So I'm checking in. I got my 3 kids at the table. I got my wife. I have my 80-year-old mother who lives with us. And so we're checking in, and my wife starts. She's giving a little bit of context and detail. Then it goes to my 6th grade son, and he says, 1. That's it. As a parent, do I drill? Do I press? Do I pause? Do I just move on to the next person?
So I'll share, and then Kevin, if you want to add in. So as a parent, of course, we know our kids, and they can walk out of the room and we know their moods. My son walks in the door, I know if he's had a good day or not. But what I will say is, if he is sharing a 1, it's not really about probing, but it's about creating an opportunity and space for, if you want to talk about that, I'm here. And then maybe you know, come back later and do another check-in or check-up and see where he is. But probing a person who's a 1, that's kind of like asking for a fight or flight mode. Like, all right, you just don't even know. Just leave me alone. I need my time. Having kids and knowing all of those things, I would say ask him. Let him know that you're there. If you need anything, if I can help, let me know. And then just backtracking and checking that mood again. But prior to, I think upfronting it, having those conversations upfront about, you know what, guys, we're going to do mood meters. We're going to think about our pulse meters. We're going to think about where we are. And if you're a 1 or a 2 and you're low and you want something from us or you need something from us, feel free to like let us know. Have that conversation. What do you need?
So
Kevin,
the only thing I would add, Joe, as a male, I'm like you. We're genetically at times DNA to fix things, right? And so I tell people at trainings all the time, I think what restorative has taught me is how to be a better listener. Because, you know, we actually show a video, and if you haven't seen it out there, it's called The Hammer and the Nail. It's a woman who has a nail stuck in her forehead. And you've seen
I love that. Yeah, yes, yeah.
Save the marriage.
I show it because the man's like, no, I think what the problem is, you need to take the nail. And she's like, see, you're not listening. He's like, fine, I'll listen, right? So when you see that, we actually use that video because what we're trying to say is sometimes just listen. So what I tell people all the time is sometimes I'm asking, at times I tell them, particularly if you're in a marriage or a relationship, right? I ask the significant other or your spouse, say, hey, am I listening to fix or listening to listen? Because that allows me to have 2 different mindsets. Listening from here and I'm pointing to my head, or listening from my heart, I will tell you, are 2 completely different listening styles. And what I've learned is I typically just start now listening to my heart, but that's taken many years of practicing. And then if you say, oh no, so what do you need? So to give you a very specific answer to your question is, we believe this sentence stem right here is universal. So if I could give you the biggest tool for your listeners is, it's this sentence stem here. What do you need? Now, pause there, ... and then you fill it in. Hey, son, what do you need in order for you, right, to feel supported while you're in a 1? Or what do you need while you're in a 1 space right now? Do you need me to back up? You want me to check in later? Because ultimately, it leaves us as a listener guessing. And our parental instincts are, well, let me just fix it for you. Well, let me do this, let me do that, right? And so instead of us pouncing and fixing, we need to listen. And if you listen and ask that question, what do you need? So like some of your students, let's say you have a youth pastor that's doing a virtual Zoom, right? And one of your students is not, just seems distracted or whatever. You literally could just say, hey, Zach, what do you need so that you can kind of focus and participate with us while you're on our Zoom right now? I need to shut the door. I need to put the dog up. I need to put my phone down, whatever it is, right? But I think when you use that sentence, then you're filtering down specifically to the root issue of what do I need? And it's okay when somebody says, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Because the biggest, most valuable lesson I've learned through this whole restorative journey and experience is people are allowed to feel how they feel. You can't tell someone how they should feel. So, as a parent, we could be like, why are you a 1? I got a video game over here. You've been doing this. So then we try to convince them why they're not a 1, as an example, right? But what we need to understand is however someone feels, you can't tell someone how they should feel. So the biggest thing I've learned is right now is they're allowed to feel however they want to feel, even if I'm the one that put them there. That even if I'm part of the reason why they're a 1 today, because I didn't let them do something, at the end of the day, how they feel is exactly how they should feel. So they got to be like, when I was at home, remember I just told you that story when I was at home, like, what is wrong with me? They have to get in a self-reflective mode. And hopefully if you have somebody in your life that you can bounce something off, because we were on a Zoom call a couple weeks ago on a Monday, just checking in with everybody. And I was probably a 3 or 4. On Tuesday, Joe and Zach, I crashed to a 1. But we didn't have a scheduled Zoom call. So what did I do? I knew that my team said, if you're here, if you ever need us, and I picked up the phone and I called Denise and I said, Denise, I'm a one. She's like, talk to me, right? Therefore, it's me. But again, just knowing that sentence then, what do you need? And then ask that question and then just sit back and trust. And I will tell you, God trusts. I just trust all the time in the process. This whole thing is a process versus a product.
All right.
I so
Seems like
love that about you,
building.
Kevin, because that, like, seeing that growth, like, we are truly, Kevin and I, we are truly living and walking this journey together, literally. We do both all the time. I'll never remember that call, the time I called you and I was like, oh, I'm about to go off up in here. And Kevin, you know, was like, all right, so just talk to me. And that was like not a fix, but he talked me off the ledge, because I do get on the ledge sometime. I'm human, but we do the same back and forth. And so
that's on her other sleeve. She doesn't have it there, but that says Nisi.
Yeah, Nisi. That's the
Nisi
Nisi in me.
when Nisi's ready to come out, I need to remind her, like, what, your circle mama.
Circle mama, bring circle mama back.
Yeah, sometimes when the hood wants to come out, you just
That's right. That's right. Hood will come out, and I'm like, I put hood on pause, but don't think I can't unpause it.
Love it. Zach, throw in there. I know you have something. I want to jump into another one of these practices, though. What do you got?
So, I mean, it seems like this is a muscle that we're all building, right? And so now when we get in those tough situations, we've built up the muscles to be able to handle it. There's a guy walking in my backyard in the rain right now.
Hey, you know what? Hey, Zach, perfect opportunity. Hey, what do you need?
What do you need?
Get out of my backyard.
Get out of my backyard.
This man out of my backyard.
You need a 9mm right now.
Yeah.
But all of these just seem like tools in the toolkit, so that when life does get tough, because it will get tough, you're able to like pull these out, and I'm able to know exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I know how I'm showing up, and I know how to show up for my wife, for my friends, for my youth group, so that I can love and serve them.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. You hit it on the head, Zach. When we know where we are and we know where our loved ones are the ones that are around us, then we know how to show up. And that allows us to show up as our best self in that situation.
Okay. All right. I got the pulse meter. I need something else. Give me something else.
All right. So, Kevin, you want to do
tools.
Spark? So we're going to do Spark, and then we'll do just a quick little 1-2 question circle. You want to do Spark?
Sure.
You're great at it.
So the spark, the spark is something we just call as a positive interaction, right? So when we're physically together, we teach them as high fives, fist bumps, chicken wings. It could be rock, paper, scissors. It could be almost anything. So what we want to think about is I want you to think about when you're with people in your home, right? So let's just talk about there. Let's talk about where you're still in person. If you're able to be within 6 feet of each other, then again, you're able to do those positive interactions and sparks, right? So sometimes they're physical contacts, but other times they could be written notes. So here's would be a challenge for some of your listeners, right? Is that something as easy and simple as a Post-it note, right? And a simple Post-it note, right? And if everybody could find something in their house, right, and write something down positive on a Post-it note, and then when your children wake up, and whether they come to breakfast or it's on their door, or where's the first that they go, on the bathroom, in the mirror, whatever it is, right? Then all of a sudden you have a sign that says, you matter, right? Or you're awesome, or I love you, or just little simple things like that, right? If you're virtually sending a message, text messages, right? We always joke about text messages or something sometimes we take as just like, it's just part of our communication. It's just another nonverbal way to communicate. But I will tell you, and I know you two came to the training, but I don't know if we did this activity at the time, but during the training now, we make people intentionally pick up their phone and randomly text somebody, first person on their heart, first person on their mind, no filter, but it's got to be positive, positive, but just something from your heart. And listen, those text messages, I've had some people say, oh my God, I text messaged my mother today, and she was like, I love you. And she was like, what's this for? And I joke with them because since we don't typically teach affirmations and use affirmations as Zach just said, as a muscle, right? Well, then what happens is when you use that muscle, people are like, what's this for? Like, why are you sending this to me? And I think that it's sad that we're not in an opportunity. So if you think about it, just right now, looking at us, who we are, right? I'm going to let Denise go first. And Denise, right? Let's just say, Denise, you're going to go to Zach. And I want you to affirm Zach. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. I got this. Zach, I want to say thank you for showing up. You're amazing. Your strength and your faith in God. And you showed up for us and your listeners today, even though you're going through something. I love your energy and your spirit, and keep letting God use you.
All right. So Zach, I'd love you, since your partner in crime, why don't you affirm Joe?
I get to affirm Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, Joe. Wait, because of your background, what'd that say?
Oh, it's not going to.
Oh.
Is that a butt?
Is that a
The
butt?
deepest crease in the heart I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Joe, your artistic ability may be lacking, but I love your leadership. I love how you continually show up. I love how you serve people behind the scenes. And right now his house is full of people. He's got a couple living with him. I mean, Joe just opens up his life to people and does it to serve and make them better. You're awesome at that. I love that you look like Bradley Cooper, and I love that you eat cookies with me.
Awesome. So when you think about this, right, and it gets the opportunities, everybody can just affirm each other. And so when we look at it, it can be a written note on the mirror. It can be a Post-it note. It could be something that you write on a napkin and you're doing at breakfast, right? As the kids are having breakfast. If you're doing something virtually, again, just like you did, Joe, they can't see it per se, but, writing something on a Post-it note, if we can send messages to each other, right? There's so many different ways. And when you look at, I started watching so many things as we started to try to transition in this first part of going to online learning. When before we went to online learning, I think everybody was just kind of like at spaces, right? Then all of a sudden we saw teachers driving through neighborhoods and parades so that kids could start to still see them, right? I've seen the campus where all the staff comes to the school and then the community drives through it. Like, I've seen some of our principals go and give out we're giving out the Teacher of the Year award or the Nurse award at the house, and they don't come within 6 feet, but they're like, we love you and we celebrate you, right? Like, doing yard signs. Like, there's so many different things that people are coming up with and being creative during this time. But if you look at it, it's all about affirming positive interactions, particularly in this time. And whether you follow social media or news and everything, your whole world at this time could really at one time be crashing and burning, right? Depending on what your experience is. My daughter called me this morning and one of her coworkers through a complication had passed away through this virus. And so she was emotional. And so it hits everybody in different places. But if we can learn to be more positive with each other, then ultimately what that spark does is it literally sparks. I mean, we do it from one household to the next household. And so if you're in your house, you need to find an intentional way to say, all right, how are we going to affirm each other this morning? So not only is it like muscle, Zach, we're going to exercise this morning. We're going to check in, right? We're going to affirm each other, and then we're going to get to know you. And that'll be the third tool, about just questions about how we do that. But you can do that multiple times throughout the entire day so that those emotions don't get all over the place. Because if I can I can reduce myself from being a 1 to 5 if I know I have that outlet and someone to check in with me, if I'm being more positive. It's all about our mindset during this time. And what these tools do allows your mind to stay more in that positive, connected, And even though it's emotional space, it's more of a healthy emotional space versus a disparate emotional space.
Mhm. And it's also a tool they can use for those that they're missing right now. You know, send those text messages to those far away, write a letter to someone, an email, take a picture, record a video and send it. So it doesn't just have to be the people in your home, but it can be those that you care about and miss that are far away.
I mean, Joe, simple as this, and I'm not going to mention names, but one of my people on our team, right? He the other day, him and his daughter were playing baseball or a little like ball in the backyard, doing some exercise as a young girl, right, and everything else. And I looked on there and I was like, as a baseball coach, so the coach comes out, I'm like, oh my God, she didn't even have like a bat, right? And so I go to Amazon, I know his address, I ship him a baseball, but I don't even tell. Next thing you know, it comes in on Friday and they're like, did you send us this? And I'm like, you know, and they're like, oh my God, it made our day, right? $20 little bat and ball and different tea and different things like that. So to me, it's not necessarily about the money. It's how can you remind people you're important, you matter, right? You're important. I see you. You matter. If you're an administrator out there in a school and you're like, how can you stay connected with your teachers? I know some schools have now created an online Facebook page group just for their campus so that they can continue to support each other. Some people are doing group texts. Some people are using weekly Zooms. Some people I know are playing poker, virtual poker online. And they're like, oh my God, I haven't connected with these people in like 10 years, but every week we have a virtual poker online. And while they're doing it, they're just connecting with each other. So I think there's endless things. Just remember affirming and positive interaction.
It's brilliant. We're 2 for 2. We got pulse meters. We got sparks. We got time for one more. What else?
One more. Okay.
So one more. We're going to do GTKY.
Yes, we're doing GTKY. Last thing is we say get to know you circles. Now, circle is an opportunity for us to have intentional conversations, but we use a talking piece and we have circle guidelines so that, once again, we talked about that earlier. So our best self shows up for others as we're in that circle space. And we're just gonna ask fun questions to just get to know one another. You don't wanna go deep because guess what? We might be in a situation where I don't really know you, I don't really trust you yet, so I'm not gonna share deeply, but something very low risk that would be easy to answer. So we use guidelines, we use a talking piece. We pose a question, pass the talking piece. So let's do a quick little circle here. And I'm gonna go in the order and we're gonna pretend we have the little ducky as a talking piece. Start with me and then next is Joe, Zach, and then Kevin. And so here's the first question that I wanna ask you guys. Since all of this, are you a bottom PJ person all day, or do you actually get up and get dressed like you're going to work? If I don't have a meeting, I'm not just a bottom PJ person. I'm in my PJs all day.
I will. Do I have the ducky?
You have the ducky.
Okay. I'm taking the ducky. All right. I'm definitely a bottom PJ person, no doubt. So that's me all day long. All right. I am passing to
Other way.
Other way.
There you go.
Okay. There's a reason this is framed right here. Right now. No. I have to get up and get dressed. I have to shower. Otherwise, I'm just lazy all day. So I have to get up and get dressed.
All right. So that's right. I got it. So I am a bottom PJ all day long. But I'm kind of like you, Zach. I feel like I'm bottom PJ, but at the end, I've realized if I don't shower and I don't get dressed and I don't push myself to do certain things, then I am more lazy the fact to get back. And so I'm one of those things that I know I'm a bottom PJ, but I got to do something because I feel like I've got to get outside. I've got to get moving, got to do those things. And so, yeah, I'm kind of that 50-50. And I'm struggling because I will tell you not. So when I bottom PJ, I bottom eat. And so, so yeah. So we won't go any further than that, but I will tell you, yes, that is a real life struggle.
Okay, I got the talking piece. And next question, what is the first thing you're gonna do once we have access to being closer than 6 feet to others?
I know what Denise is gonna do.
You know, what am I gonna do?
It's gonna involve chips and queso.
Look, I'm going somewhere and have chips and queso, happy hour, and give somebody a hug. Passing to you, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, the normal 1 hour wait at Chewy's that I throw a fit about, I'll wait 6-7 hours. I'm whatever it's gonna take to get those margaritas. I'm all in. Here to you, Zach.
Chewy's does sound really good right now. What could I do? I feel like right now I'm up for like a really good game of ultimate frisbee. Like a bunch of people at the park. I don't know, maybe some basketball, like pick up basketball. Just a little stir crazy. I need an outlet.
Gotcha. All right. So I'm like you. I want to do something outdoors, kind of like that. And then after I finish that, I want to head right to the Mexican restaurant, and then I want to have my margarita and some fajita. It's not the same. I could make fajitas here and a margarita here. I need that ambiance. I need that camaraderie. But I'll be honest, I miss my team. My team is my family. And so I miss being around educators and kids and my team. And I just can't wait for us to be back together.
So good.
All righty, guys. Thank you so much. So that was just 2 questions. Get to know you. Like I said, keep it fun, keep it light. We have to build trust in this. And if I don't really know you and I'm not sure about you, I'm not going to answer deep questions. So keep it light and fun. I want people to think of it as if I stepped on a campus and the bell rang and I've not been on that campus before, I'm a stranger, the bell rang, I could ask a question. When that bell rang to any student in the hallway, they could answer it easily.
So to just extend on that, the reason we call him GTKY is because we actually defined it. We want to keep it shallow-ended, just get to know you. And I think Denise is doing an amazing job of illustrating that, because I think and this is not just educators, some people go too deep too quick, right? And so, I always joke with them, on your first date, you don't want to talk about all your exes and your crazy cats. Like that could be later. So you want to give an opportunity for us to just get a chance to GTKY. Let's just get to know you. And the thing about that is if you were going, let's say I'm a youth pastor, a minister, or I'm doing a Zoom meeting or something, and I want to kind of do an icebreaker, right? Make sure that you ask a question that everybody feels comfortable in answering, because if somebody says pass, right, it's okay to pass. It's okay for them not to answer. So the goal isn't for me as a facilitator of this is to require a response more than it is to encourage. And so I think when a lot of people say, well, how do you get people to talk? I'm like, well, ask good questions. I mean, ask questions to the appropriate audience, right? If I'm in elementary, ask an elementary style question, something that they're interested in. Ask a middle school question, right? Ask high school questions. So if you have a diverse group, let's say I'm doing a youth ministry and I have all secondary students. We'll make sure that there's questions, right? And here's the deal. If you do want to get into a little bit deeper of like, how are you coping with this right now? Or what, all those other things, all we always reminder is this: start in the shallow, end in the shallow. So for example, with easy question, go a little bit deeper if you need to, go a little bit deeper, and then work your way back into the shallow. Because if you leave your conversation on the deep-ended question, it tends to make us feel like we just had a therapy session, right? And we don't want it to be therapeutic, even though it could be therapeutic just to talk about it. For us as an audience, we want to make sure that you're starting in the shallow, ending the shallow, right? So something really simple, go a little bit deeper if you need to, and then get back in that shallow end. And if you're going to do 3 questions, but it just allows you to make sure that your audience feels comfortable. And if somebody doesn't want to share, don't take that personal. It could be a reflection of where they're at currently in their emotions, their mood, their circumstances, and that really, with everything that's going on right now, I think has to be a highlight.
There's also something for parents. I want to hit on this real quick. At home, I do family circles. So, but when I first started, I just did 1 question, because when you have your parents saying, "Oh, come on, guys, we're gonna do a circle and we're gonna be a family," especially if you have teenage kids, they're looking at you like, "What the heck is wrong with my mom?" So just start with 1 question, but I will say, put the technology in a box and say, "Hey guys, we're just going to take an opportunity to connect as a family, come together." We are so technology driven, and everybody comes home and parents ask this question: "How was your day?" What does kids say? "Oh, fine." Well, all right, they're fine. But if we ask, "Tell me something good that happened in your day today," we might get a little more detail. So it's really how you ask it. And of course, you can always do, family chat, circles, call it whatever you want to call it.
So one way to do that is, once you put your phones aside, you literally could hand Post-it notes to your kids. Everybody can write down a question. You put it into a cup or a bucket, and then you just randomly pull that out. So if I literally in the household, if I was with a group of teenagers or a larger family, I would say, "Okay, everybody put in your question for today." That way, when we could be standing around the big island eating breakfast with cereal, right? And you literally can be like, "All right, somebody pull out the question," right? And we're just going to kind of go around and just going to get a chance to answer that question or check in with it. Those are the little things, because you don't have to go, "I don't know what to ask." There's tons of questions. And I feel like if you ask teenagers, right, or adolescents to contribute the question, then they're more likely to feel like it's going to be on point for them to answer. So if I'm virtually doing something and I got a group of teens in a virtual setting like Zoom, then I'm going to say, "Hey, why doesn't or I lead you and say, "Hey, when we come back tomorrow for our Zoom or our Wednesday night meeting, why don't everybody bring 1 question and you can submit that," right? And we can kind of pick from those questions and everybody feels comfortable doing those types of things, because I don't want the facilitators or the parents or your influencers to think, "Who's going to come up with these questions," right?
Yeah.
Man, all right. So we got to have you guys back on, because there's so many other questions and thoughts that I have. That you're opening a door here for parents, educators, youth pastors, all of us who are influencers, to really walk down and connect with folks. And I'm even thinking about things that I've experienced within the context of the workplace, not just ministry. And this is powerful stuff. So how do people connect with you guys? Denise, I want you to share what you're doing right now for high school seniors. So if anyone listening knows a high school senior, I want you to connect with what Denise is up to right now.
So I'm going to try to not get emotional on this, but I just was sitting and thinking, I have so many kids that I've had an opportunity to get to know. And some are seniors right now, and speaking with them, they're heartbroken that right now their senior year is spent at home. And I just thought, like, what is a way that they can know that they're not alone, and I can bring that community of seniors together so that they can kind of create their own community, check in with each other, see how they're doing. So we've started at NetRP, we started our senior page. It's called Connecting Class of 2020. We're going to be doing virtual circles with seniors. My hope is that we get this great idea to do a virtual prom, game nights, for seniors to be able to connect and know that they're not alone. We need to check on them and see where they are and how they're doing. And when I sent that post out, the responses were unbelievable. That lets me know that they are sitting out there just not knowing what to do. I need something, I need someone. I feel so alone, is what many of them told me, including their parents. So we'll have our page up, and it'll be for high school seniors. Even the parents, if they want to connect with each other, because parents are struggling right now as well. They've waited all this time to graduate high school and to have their babies graduate. And now nobody knows what's going to happen. So create community, pull everybody together. We'll be doing that. Look for our page. We'll post things. We also have a blog. Check us out.
Okay, so that website again is, I love this, nedrp.com, right?
Yes.
And then are you guys Facebook, Instagram, you on those platforms too?
We got Facebook, we got Instagram, we're I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, so I mean Twitter, we've got all and those tags are at NEDRPETE. And so I'm sure we'll provide a link for all of those for our social media. But the main way to find us is just through our nedrp.com, because on there you can go to our blog, and our blog right now is addressing virtual home parents, teachers, and we're trying to come up with content and tools, much like we discussed today. You can take a deeper dive into those tools and get a lot more examples if you go to the blog site, and then just follow along with us on social media. And so then the last thing I will tell you, we're really proud that we just finished our first 7.5-hour online training course. And so we're vetting it this week. It's set to launch next Monday. It's going to be for school districts and for campuses and districts that are looking for professional development hours in the area of restorative practices, AKA relational practices. How to help teachers extend these tools. So we'll be talking about our 60-second relate break, our 2-minute connection, our 90-second spark plan, our pulse meters, and our GTKY circles, and our treatment agreements. So you can take a deeper dive into that and finding more about who we are and what we bring to the classroom by taking this opportunity to take our online course for the first time ever. Based on this pandemic, we tried to meet the needs of our customers and our educators that are sitting at home looking for something virtual. And so we created this. It'll be launching next Monday. You can stay tuned to the website and our social media for discount coupons and different things and opportunities for you to participate in that training and get to know all of us. And so Denise is part of that training. Denise has a kind of a summary. Denise speaking from the heart after every one of the tools. I do the introduction and the closure. You get a chance to know who we are. I just tried to tell people, I don't want this to be like that defensive driving thing where you just try to like click through and get through the videos. We are literally trying to connect with people, telling stories, showing personal pictures. Like, we're trying the best that we can to go through the screen to get people to connect with us, because we feel like what you two got to experience in live, it's so hard to replicate those connections online, but we're doing the best that we can, and we've pivoted, and we're excited about meeting the needs. That's why we go back to that question, Joe. What do you need? Mm-hmm. Anybody out there, what do you need? That's our question. What do you need during this time? If you need someone to listen, if you need someone to talk to, if you need tools, any of those things, I think between your ministry and our ministry, because it is a ministry for me, between our two ministries, I feel like if your listeners and influencers, if they'll reach out to us in some form or fashion, I promise you, between our resources, we can put our heads together to meet all of your listeners' needs.
Mm-hmm. This is brilliant. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm ready to take a look at that online training again, even though I went to the physical training live. But man, you guys are doing such great stuff out there. And you know, schools, you're probably just scratching the surface, right? This is the next frontier, like churches, workplaces. Like, how do we foster these sorts of connections? You know, people, person to person connections. And how is our culture going to just benefit if we're all leveraging tools like this? I mean, so much great stuff. Kevin, Denise, I can't thank you enough for spending a very long time with us on this podcast, but every bit of it has been valuable, and I'm sure we're going to have more to discuss in the future. So appreciate both you guys.
Thank you guys for having us. Thank you. Thank you. I love you and I love your listeners, and there's nothing they can do about it.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
All righty. See
All
you
right.
guys later.
All right.